It's the place of the university to remind you of your heritage, to bring you into contact with the fact that you are the inheritors of a cultural tradition that starts with Plato, that starts with these ideas, these things that you're doing now, we've been doing for generations and for centuries. And in some ways, there is nothing new. So one of the things that's really important to me today is that we are not talking about how great everything is at Stony Brook, but more importantly, I want to note that today I found everything I needed to discuss this program here in San Juan. So I took a walk from my hotel down to Condado Beach, and then back, and then I had a nice meal. And so let me just share with you a preview. News literacy is a narrow subslice, right, of this idea of media literacy that's been around for a while. And it is the ability to use your critical thinking skills to judge the reliability and credibility of news reports, no matter how they come to you. We took the whole universe of media literacy and we said, we can't do everything. We're going to focus on the information you need to function as citizens. In order to make decisions, in order to take action as a citizen, you need reliable information. And what we learned is that many people have no idea how. So my boss, the dean of the School of Journalism at Stony Brook, was teaching a course. He wasn't the dean yet. There was no School of Journalism. A very smart college president said, Howie, why don't you come teach a course and get to know our students? And then he started teaching, and of course, teaching is wonderful. And she said, Howie, why don't you help me design a new School of Journalism? And then he started working on that, and he got really excited. And she said, Howie, why don't you be the first dean of the School of Journalism? And that's how she reeled him in, and she started with you guys. So he's teaching this class, and he discovers that when it comes to reliable information, students fall into three categories. One category at the ripe old age of 18, a significant number of students are totally cynical. They don't believe anything from the media. It's all lies. It's all spin. Another group believes everything. Everything they see, it's true. And then in the middle, there's this big group that has no idea. They're really not sure. They don't know where to go. So he rebuilds this class, and he starts taking these ancient habits of mind and skills and teaching them to students as they address the news media, looking for information about how to vote, right? What to do as citizens. So people in the newspaper industry were very interested in this course because it was a course in which the news was the text. And so one of the big foundations gave the university $2 million to build the course, teach it to 10,000 undergraduate students, and then spread the course across the country. So that's my job. I came in about 2 years into that process, and my job is to go to places like this and talk about what we're doing. I also bring teachers to Stony Brook in the summer and train them in the course and how to teach the course. And so we've grown from one university to about 25 in the last 5 years, and we've grown from no high schools to about 50 high schools around the country. And so in the last year, I've been working a lot with professors from Mexico City, from Texas, specifically the border towns of Texas, and we're developing a Latino-oriented news literacy course. It's our course, but it takes a special slice of the media, which is so many of the Spanish-speaking immigrants in the United States consume only Central American and Latin American media, which is fine, but it slows their process of integration as Americans. And so with Federico Sobervi, who is a Puerto Rican gentleman who is now at Texas State San Marcos, we have developed a bilingual and a Spanish language version of the course. Can I reveal the fact that Annette Sofia Ruiz Morales, who came to my summer program, has translated the course into Spanish as well. And so we feel that in the next year or so, there will be this course in anywhere Spanish is spoken. People will be able to teach the course. We take an open source software approach. We give anyone who wants to teach this course a DVD, I have them here, with the syllabus, all of the lectures, all of the materials ready to go. Because the idea is that we want you to take it and make it your own in whatever setting, high school, college, wherever. Okay, so how did I learn everything I needed to know today? Well, first, I was walking down the Diego, and I was seeing that there was this building that had been abandoned. And here came these roots, and they were breaking through and taking back over. Now, I know in every country, we're very worried about citizen engagement. But I think that these skills are like the light and the water, which when somebody doesn't pay attention, these roots break back through, and they break through the walls. So that was a little metaphor I saw today. The other is that people are so worried about youth, and everybody who's young is stupid, and they want everything right now, now, now. But I was watching the surfers at Condado, and they were so patient. They paddle, and they paddle, and they paddle, and they get smashed around, and they wait, and maybe they get 5 good rides in an hour and a half. You know, it's like when you watch skateboarders and they're trying to practice their ollies and you're like, this is so stupid. He keeps falling off the skateboard. Why does he keep trying? But he's so patient if you look at it another way. So I think that actually if we engage young people in this practice of citizenship, which is so hard, like standing on a surfboard, it's so hard. And the payoff is so slim, right? The excitement of citizenship, maybe once in your life, the person you want gets elected. Right? Most of the time they elect the dummy. But every once in a while it pays off. And I think we all have that patience in us. And it's the patience of the surfer. And it's that moment of exhilaration when it goes exactly the way you hoped. And it's because you stayed engaged. You stayed there on your board. And you paddled and you ducked under all the terrible waves until you finally saw that beautiful, tasty wave. And you got on it and you rode it. And whoo! That was the experience. So that's him. He's celebrating the end of a really great ride. So the big worry in news literacy is that we all spend all of our time just like this, and we are walking through the world, and we're not seeing anything, and we're not hearing the coquille, and we're just so caught in the screen. But that's the fertile ground in which this course has to exist, is because actually we are engaged with media all the time. I think we always were. I think I'm one of those people who every once in a while I step back and take a breath and say, there's nothing new. It's just new forms of the same thing. And so I'm watching this gentleman at my hotel, and he's working, but he's probably texting his girlfriend. And I'm including this poem because it's just so beautiful I had to. And then the other thing that's a really important lesson of news literacy is that we all must consume a mixed diet. So today, I had mofongo, which, wow, what a mix that is, right? And I had a lovely piece of red snapper, which is chillo. So I had chillo, and I had mofongo, and I had my broccoli, and I had my peas. And that's really what we teach, is that TV is great, but it's only great for certain kinds of news. You have to supplement it with other things to get a full diet. And you have to try new things, right? So it was all here. All the news literacy lessons were here for me today. And I couldn't resist when, what? Maltrato la mujer. What? Context, though, is so important. It's actually a billboard that says, dile no al maltrato de la mujer, right? So that's one of the things we teach, is how important it is that you take these facts and you peel back and get all of the context with them. You can see I'm a terrible bore. Everywhere I go, I see news literacy lessons. You should feel sorry for my children. So today, we're in a very important time. Oh, I lost my piece. There's supposed to appear the headline of the story about the vote. and there's a lot of people who really don't care to vote about Puerto Rico's future and what should its role be, what should its form take. Is it going to be a new nation? Is it merely going to be a state? Are you going to continue to only vote in the primary? Boy, is that teasing? That's just not fair. I was looking that up before I came down here, and I thought, that would make me very angry. So why is there the need for news literacy? Well, when the swine flu epidemic was breaking across the country, we asked our students, are you going to go get vaccinated? And maybe 10% said, yes, I'm going to. And we said, well, why not? And they said, well, I heard that it was a dangerous vaccination. I saw this video with Jenny McCartney and Jim Carrey who said it causes autism and blah, blah, blah. And if you go on Google, somebody's grinning at me from the back because she saw it. If you go on Google, you Google search for, is the H1N1 vaccine safe? You get 1.5 million responses, right? Okay, so you want the best ones, you go to the top of the list, and number 5 was complete BS. How do you say that in Spanish? ¿Cómo se dice? So it was complete BS. And so it was this holistic health guy saying, oh, the vaccines are not safe, they cause this and that, with absolutely no scientific basis whatsoever. And that was a really important lesson for us in teaching our students that on the web, on Google, rank has nothing to do with reliability. That's a huge lesson, and it was stunning to see how many students, their eyes got big because they figured the first thing on the list is the best one. It's not. It's only the most popular. So there's the other problem. People say, Professor Miller, you like to say that there's nothing new, but the fact is there's so much coming at you. We call it the information tsunami. 120,000 minutes of original content are coming at you for every minute of your day. Radio, internet, TV, billboards, everywhere you go, you're bombarded, and it's the natural human reaction to just roll over on your back and say, basta, right? No more. I'll tune it all out. So, is that really different? I think we're aware now of more information than we used to be aware of. We didn't know how much there was to know. But my grandmother, 20 years ago, used to say, I wish they would send me to prison so that I could catch up on my reading. I think that's the same impulse. There's so many books, I'm never going to get to them all, right? There's so many Amy Winehouse videos, I'm never going to get to them all. Okay. So news literacy is a reaction to that. It's teaching people to stay engaged and to not be exhausted, because if we give them these critical skills, they can be engaged without being exhausted. So the education philosopher Thomas Dewey talked a lot about critical thinking, and this was a perfect segue. Thank you very much. But he talked about this idea that it's not, you don't want to develop students who merely receive information. You don't want to develop citizens who merely receive their information. You want to develop citizens who are actively going out and combing the countryside, combing the world of information for the things they need and want. So we worry, though. We worry because in our country, a significant number of people still think that this is a real birth certificate from Kenya. And how do they know that the president was born in Kenya and not in Hawaii, and that his devious mother put fake birth announcements in both Honolulu newspapers because she knew that in 50 years he was going to be president of the United States? How do they know this is true? Because they saw it on the internet. That's how they know that's a real birth certificate. And how do they know this is a real picture of Sarah Palin defacing the American flag? Well, they saw it on the internet only, oh wait, somebody photoshopped that. So this is the other thing, as we peel the scales from the eyes of students on common misperceptions, to teach them not to be cynical of everything, but to teach them how important it is to be engaged and to be smart about what they see, or else they will be manipulated by devious people for a variety of reasons. One of the most frustrating things for people of all ages is that the news media can't seem to get anything right. Right? When the spill happened in the Gulf of Mexico, the size of it changed every day. What is wrong with the news media? They said 5,000 barrels, and then they said 15, and then they said 400,000 barrels a day. And well, the fact is, even if you look at science, truth is provisional. It changes with new evidence. Yeah, well, why is the media so irresponsible? Why don't they stay put and wait until we know, and then they report? Okay, so how many of you in this room, how many of you grew up thinking that Pluto was a planet? Now Pluto's not a planet. So how long was the scientific community supposed to wait before they told you? 75 years? Right? And the same thing with the spill in the Gulf of Mexico. We really don't know. Those are still approximations. We tell you every day because part of the enterprise of being an engaged citizen is you have to keep up. It is hard work. It is very hard work. So we talk about those issues. Here's some things that have changed. Between the end of George W. Bush's first term and the beginning of Obama's first term, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter came to life. Now these guys are like, what? Weren't those always around? But, you know, we can remember when there was politics without Twitter. Now it's impossible to imagine. Any politician who ignores Twitter is dead meat. So, again, these are new forms of media doing the same things that have always been done, but we need to train students to be conscious of how these things function, how they operate. So we spend a fair amount of time thinking about reliability, and I like to point out that these characteristics that we tell students to look for in news media, this is a transferable skill. These are all characteristics of any reliable information, whether you become a scientist, whether you become a philosopher, no matter what. Is the information verified? Not just written down, but did somebody check to make sure it's true? Is the organization that's giving to you the information independent? Or do they have a dog in the fight? And are they accountable? We have, in news literacy, we have no use for anonymous. We have no use for anonymous information because nobody can stand up and say, I'm sorry, we got that wrong. So we talk about that. The outcomes we look for is that we want students to learn to distinguish between useful, legitimate journalism about their culture, about their society, and everything else. Advertising, propaganda, spin, hype, just the raw stuff. Look, here's what I got. I put it on YouTube. You know, that's not journalism. It can be a part of journalism, but it's just raw stuff. To learn how to judge the reliability and credibility of news reports, to understand the mission of the press under our democracy, to know a little bit about how news decisions are made, to know a little bit about things like rank is not reliability on Google, and to understand the new responsibilities of the news consumer, because now I have all of the power that my publisher had when I was a young reporter. If I produce something that's really compelling, millions of people will see it. And so that places on me profound responsibilities, karmic responsibilities to not pollute this tsunami of information that comes to us every day. So I think I'm going to skip these because I'm running short on time. We've been studying the outcomes of this course because people who give you $2 million want to know that it's actually accomplishing something, right? So we do a before and after survey of our students' habits and skills, and We do the same survey of students who are not in the course, and then we come back a year later and ask the same survey. Now, when I saw the year later data, I wanted to slip my wrists and go home because they didn't hold on to anything. And luckily, I have an old friend in the chemistry department, and he said, "Dean, calm down." He says, "Our chemistry students don't remember anything a year later either." The point is that you've showed them how to find it, and when they need to access those skills and that information, those pathways are still there. So students who took the course were dramatically better at analyzing video for quality, for fairness, for completeness. I think it's because everybody grew up with the idea, well, don't believe everything you read. But there's no similar cultural concept for video, and so that plus the fact that video is sort of a soporific. ¿Cómo se dice soporific? Nícero? So yes, I mean, I think you get in front of the TV and you just check your brain. It turns off. And so just by forcing students to start analyzing what they're seeing, their skills went way up. Hello? There we go. Students who were in the course increased the amount that they exposed themselves to internet and newspaper information, so current events, which is a critical part of being an engaged citizen. They really were paying more attention. They knew more about who was governor, who was U.S. senator. And they had taken in this idea that keeping up on what's going on in their culture is important. They had internalized that. So how do we do this? Well, we have 14 lectures. So we start with Gutenberg and Zuckerberg. We talk about this revolution in media. We talk about the power of information and that in many countries, people die to get information out and people kill to suppress it. If you think of Mexico right now, it's the most dangerous place in the world to be a journalist. We think about these ideas of verification, independence, and accountability, what makes credible information different from propaganda. We think about the crazy country we live in. That's how I do that whole lecture. You should pack. You live in a crazy country because we really believe in freedom of speech and freedom of the press. How much do we believe in it? We publish national security secrets and nobody gets shot, right? We allow people to protest in front of the funerals of soldiers against homosexuality, whatever that has to do with it. And as long as they're on the sidewalk, we say, yeah, that's your free speech. We live in a crazy country. You should pack and move somewhere else. And so we talk about the fact that many people have the wrong idea. When they protected the press in the U.S. Constitution, they weren't protecting the press industry. They were protecting you in the basement of your house with a mimeograph machine, printing out your crazy ideas and distributing them. It was this idea that on the battlefield of ideas, if everything was brought in, the strongest idea would rise to the top. And a lot of students don't understand that. They've been taught that it's the press's job to do that and we can all sit back. And what we say is, no, 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 you are the fourth estate. It's your job to challenge the tyrannical impulses of the executive and the legislative and the judicial. You are that fourth estate of power, not the press industry. You with your crazy ideas and your mimeograph in your basement. We think about what becomes news and why. We think about opinion, which we compare to the license to kill, right? The 00 agents, James Bond, they are, here's my opinion page director, they are directed from the very top of the organization. They're selected from the cream of the crop, and they do what no one else is allowed to do in journalism, which is to say, I think, I believe, this is what I know. It's very different. And there's a lot of opinion now mixed into journalism. A lot of people want to wear the mantle of journalists, but they don't want to wear the yoke. And so we talk about that difference, and we encourage students to mind that difference. We think about fairness and bias, and probably the most important part of this class is that we teach students about cognitive dissonance. If you read the research, it's terrifying how much you distort the information coming to you. The University of Maryland did a study, and significant numbers of people voting in the 2010 congressional election went to the polls with false information in mind. They thought their federal personal income taxes had gone up in the last 2 years. The opposite is true. They thought that there was significant disagreement in the scientific community about the changing climate. There is not. There's differences about what's causing it, what to do about it, but scientists, 99% of scientists say, oh yeah, the climate is changing. There were numerous facts that they had wrong. And the correlation was those who watched Fox News and MSNBC were the most likely to have it wrong, and everybody said, aha, see, Fox News is biased, Fox News is biased. And my response was, no, it's not so much that. It is that the people who are attracted to Fox News would not be able to hold on to the facts if you injected them in their veins. Nor the people who watch MSNBC, nor the people who listen to National Public Radio or watch CNN. The fact is that as humans, we only seek information that makes us comfortable. One of our most uncomfortable experiences is to encounter a fact that disputes a strongly held belief. I don't know if merely showing students all of these studies of how badly we warp information, and trust me, it's scary how badly we do. I don't know if that inoculates you against that, but one of the habits that we teach students to think about is you need to go out and seek out information that disputes your most fondly held beliefs. Because that mental exercise, for one thing, will make you live longer, but also it will give you a stronger hold on what you do believe if you understand the other side, and it will make us a richer democracy. So it's a great way to open the conversation about fairness and bias, because a lot of what we call bias is the fact that we only see what we want to see. And if we see something we don't want, it must be wrong. It must be biased. It can't be true that George W. Bush had a higher GPA than John Kerry at Yale. That can't be true. That bald-headed freak from New York was just making that up. But the fact is, when those things were finally leaked, George Bush had the higher GPA at Yale, the higher grade point average. Wow. So another thing we do is we teach people to think about sources, and we use this mnemonic device, I'm vain. Independent sources are better than self-interested. Multiple sources are better than a story based on a lone source. Sources who verify are better than sources who merely assert. Sources who are authoritative or informed are superior to some knucklehead that they drag in off the street and say, what do you think we should do? Duh, I don't know. Right? And a named source is always superior to an anonymous source. They're not going to do this with every story that they see, but they are going to occasionally watch something that's going to make them stop and say, wait, that guy owns property on that beach. That's why he's speaking in favor of this street project. Not because it's good for everybody, but because it's good for his property values. So we're just teaching them to be critical thinkers and readers. So I'm way over my time, and so I want to cut short and just say that James Madison was really a radical. This is why I tell people that they live in a crazy country and maybe they should think about moving someplace safer, because the fact is that the framers knew that by giving us freedom of speech and freedom of the press, that we would occasionally abuse it. They expected that. But they also expected that on the whole, as a mature society, we would use these things effectively to govern ourselves. So let me just race through. Oh, you're wondering what that is, right? Do any of you know the true story of the 3 little pigs and the big bad wolf? Maybe if there's time later, I'll tell the story. So I just want to finish on this idea that at Stony Brook, we are offering a number of ways to build this course into curricula. So in some universities, it's part of a freshman interest groups course where new college students get exposed to a number of disciplines, and so news literacy might be one section. In some universities, Florida International, the honors college students take the course and then go out into the El Salvadoran and Guatemalan community in Clearwater Springs and teach these skills to new citizens, because the feeling is that it's so important for new citizens particularly to understand how to decode and read the media. Some places we incorporate the lessons into an existing course because education bureaucracies change very slowly. Some places it becomes a special topic elective, and some places it becomes an altogether new course, at the university or the high school. We train teachers this summer. We'll train teachers in New York and Chicago, but also we're hoping to start a program in Texas, and of course, I wouldn't mind being part of a program in San Juan. Not that anybody's asking. Several high schools are now teaching this to satisfy a variety of graduation requirements. So there's material for you if you think that that is useful. Why in Puerto Rico? Well, first, it's a core competency in the digital age, but also as Puerto Rico thinks about its own future. These skills can be such an important part of being a Puerto Rican. Think of a country in which one of the defining characteristics is a populace that no matter if they've been to college or not, they are critical readers of all the media that comes their way. They're not easily led astray by deceptive techniques. That would be a really powerful democracy, and that's what our hope is that these skills spread and they make us all more effective in our most important role. And even if you don't think that, if you think I'm reaching a little bit and that's too highfalutin, the fact is these skills are useful in any discipline. This thinking about the sources of information and thinking about the weight and the evidence and thinking about language and understanding how our own bias shapes the way we see things, that's going to be valuable if you're a biologist. It doesn't have to be a journalism course. Because the way we teach it with fresh material from the headlines, it gets very high ratings from students, because one of the things when you sign up to teach the course our way, you get a weekly feed from us of curated fresh materials. So this week, last week, we were teaching some of the Power of Images lecture using those horrible videos of Gaddafi being dragged through the streets and beaten and shot. And we have this lesson called Open the Freezer, which is, did the journalist see the evidence for himself or herself? And it's based on what happened in New Orleans, where there was a lot of bad reporting about deaths at the Civic Center because nobody opened the freezer to see the bodies. They just took other people's word for it, and the freezer at the Civic Center in New Orleans was not full of murder victims. And so here we were teaching students this evidence lesson, open the freezer, and what were they doing in Libya? People were lining up to go into the freezer and see the dead man for themselves. Teaching this course, sometimes it's manna from heaven falls to you. So we provide the curriculum materials. We provide a weekly feed of new examples from the news that are curated to the course. We offer teacher training during the summer, and we are building this national network, of people who've been through our program and are still in touch and sharing materials and ideas. So our idea is to give you the turnkey course on a DVD. You build your own course so that you can rapidly launch and start teaching it and find out if it works. So I think that's where I should stop. And again, I want to say thank you so much for having me. And thank you for all those wonderful examples between my hotel and Condado.
Muy buenas noches a todos y todas. Gracias a ustedes por estar aquí en la noche de hoy y ante todo gracias a la Universidad del Sagrado Corazón por extenderme la invitación para formar parte de este proceso que ha servido no solo para exponernos a información nueva, probablemente en el caso de muchos, sino también para provocar un sacudión, ¿verdad? Porque a veces hay muchas personas que procuramos, como decía el expositor hace un minuto, buscar la información que nos sienta bien, que nos parece cómoda y que de alguna forma está en la línea de lo que pensamos. Y el reto es conseguir buscar lo contrario, ¿no? Un poco contrastar lo que pensamos y quizás ahí es que encontramos la verdad, en el contraste de unas cosas y otras. En este momento me tocará el ejercicio de lo que han llamado un poco la reflexión con la audiencia. Y para promover la reflexión con la audiencia, pues precisamente vamos a conversar con ustedes para intentar conocerles un poco más, ver cómo piensan y voy a procurar la participación de ustedes en esta etapa del proceso en la noche de hoy. Vamos a un poco preguntarles, ¿verdad? ¿Qué medios utilizan para informarse? Vamos a comenzar preguntando eso. ¿Quién quiere levantar la mano para que me diga el ejemplo del medio o medios que utilizan para informarse? Por ejemplo, usted. ¿Internet? ¿Algún portal en particular? Endy.com, por ejemplo. Creo que a Ferrer Ángel le va a gustar esa. Endy.com. Internet exclusivamente. Muy bien. ¿Alguien más por aquí? ¿Usted?
Primera hora.
Primera hora, ese es su medio de comunicación para informarse.
Bueno, no necesariamente. Casi siempre me informo a través de endy.com y a través de primerahora.com y el Profesional.
O sea que esencialmente Internet. Vamos a ir por allá usted. Sí, dedocráticamente.
Regularmente utilizo en cuanto a Internet, Endy, Noticel.
Noticel.
Lo que es radio, utilizo lo que es Radio Isla 1320 y voy por 740.
Muy bien, esa respuesta me gustó mucho. Por alguna razón que no acabo de comprender. Vamos a ver por allá usted, el del sombrero. ¿Qué medio utiliza para informarse?
Bueno, casi siempre la Internet, más específico, un poco más empleado. Con relación a radio, pues 580.
Muy bien, muy bien. Y vamos a ver por acá, quizá las estudiantes que están por allí, de camisa naranja. Usted que está sonriendo allí. ¿Usted misma? ¿Sí?
Yo uso la radio del camino a la escuela.
¿Porque los papás te obligan o porque te gusta? Muy bien.
También utilizo el endy.com a través de Facebook.
Ah, muy bien, muy bien. Perfecto.
A veces también por el periódico escrito.
Impreso, pero casi nunca. Veo que poca gente ha mencionado el papel, el periódico impreso. Eso es interesante. ¿Usted sí? Sí, es un tema generacional por lo que veo. Aquí los jóvenes utilizan el Internet particular.